Before we start today's roundtable, I want to give special thanks to Checkster, our group sponsor. Checkster has become well known in the recruiting industry by providing a platform that easily captures reference checks in the hiring process. I myself have been a customer of theirs for years. I use a reference checking tool for all of my new hires. However, Checkster has now released a new product suite called Insights. This new product suite is really what has excited me to have Checkster as the group sponsor. With Insights, the Checkster platform now covers employees from cradle to grave and not just reference checking, starting when they apply, going to offer, through onboarding, then covering their work at your company, and then to the end with exit interviews. It's an easy to use, easy to understand way of giving and getting feedback from your peers. Checkster's simple goal: to build more productive and passionate teams. Now, if this concept of getting insights from your peers regarding your work sounds familiar, it should, because that's the simple goal of this group: connecting, communicating, collaborating. Support me, support the group. Follow the link below, recruiting.org/Checkster. This will take you to a landing page to sign up for a quick demo. If you are just thinking about automating your reference checking process, it'll be well worth your time. But I encourage you to check out the full Insights suite. I'd love to find out if you feel the way I feel about it. Now let's get to today's roundtable. All right, let's jump right into it. Thank you everybody for attending episode 49 in Let's Talk Recruiting, where peer practitioners all get together and talk about various topics in the recruiting industry that we all touch on sooner or later. Today's topic is: how do you prove how good your recruiters are to your C-level? I think this is sort of an interesting conversation that staffing leaders have with their C-level suite. I think a lot of it comes down to being really good at it to get budget. I think that's a great piece to walk away from these C-level presentations is: are you getting budget to grow your team, not just in resources, but in new processes or tactics or tools that are out there. So we have with us today Brandon Diem. Brandon, did I get your last name right, Diem?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Out of the DC, Baltimore area, we have Kelsey Haybach. Did I get that?
Haybach. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Oh, okay. All right. Haybach out of Chicago. And Julie Kemp out of San Francisco, and Frank Hahn. Did I get Hahn right, Frank?
You did.
Okay, I'm improving. Also out of San Francisco, and also Melissa Madrano out of San Francisco. So we got a heavy West Coast presence on this session today. Kind of interesting. So again, our topic: how do you prove how good your recruiters are to your C-level? Kind of a complicated title now that I read it back to myself. But what we'll do is sort of do a round robin with each panelist having a key point that they want to cover. Again, this is going to be an open conversation. If you're an audience member, feel free to add any chat or comments in the chat area. So with that said, Brandon, let's jump over to you.
All right, thanks, Sean. Hi, everybody. Brandon Diem, as Sean mentioned, I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm actually between employment right now. My background is in professional services. I was with PwC for a number of years, more recently with RSM, and my position was eliminated there. And I am starting a new role at Heidrick & Struggles this coming Monday, where I'm leading their internal recruiting team. So really excited about getting started there in a new industry. I love the topic. As complicated as it is to say a sentence-long topic, it's great because I think if we're capable of doing this well, it's really what elevates us as TA leaders, right? And not only within an organization, but within our teams who feel valued and appreciated if they're recognized for the value they bring to the organization. These C-suite leaders, they don't care about how we make the sausage, right? But what they do want to know is how we're tying our initiatives in recruitment to the broader strategic firm-wide initiatives that are important to them. So our ability to really highlight what our team is doing in an impactful way within the C-suite is really about tailoring it to the audience and using real examples of what we're doing and how they tie in. So I'll give just a few examples, and then we can have discussion about it and move on to the next topic. But for example, brand awareness is critically important, right? And as brand ambassadors of our firms, our teams are out in the marketplace really representing the brand. And if they can do that well, they are really enhancing not only their ability to hire talent, but also the ability to broaden the way that that institution is seen within the marketplace. That could lead to more business, et cetera. So a couple of ways that that can be looked at is through, social media data, clicks, views, applications, followers on LinkedIn. Seeing growth in those areas demonstrates the team is doing its part to really drive that brand awareness and really brings a lot of value back to the organization. And that's something that a CEO, the CIO, CMO, CHRO would all care about. Candidate care, right? So the way that your team delivers the candidate experience through the recruitment process from point A to point B, and all along the way really shows your ability to demonstrate the culture and values of the organization. So you bring that into your recruitment experience from what someone sees on the career site through what an interview process looks like, to onboarding. Your ability to share how that is being delivered within the C-suite is a huge way of advancing what your team's doing and the value that you bring. Again, it brings brand awareness, right? And your CMO, CHRO will really be interested in what you're doing with that candidate care piece. Even something as operational as process flows, the way that you're moving candidates along through the process, how long it takes to cycle through interviews, things like that become really important showpieces because it can indicate to like a COO and a CFO how you're operating efficiently as an organization, and you're saving money in people's time, right? How long it takes to take a candidate through the process, how many people are interviewing a candidate, all that translates into the bottom line and cost efficiencies. Super important. And really, across all of the C-suite, diversity and competitive intelligence, how your ability to articulate how your recruiters are delivering a diverse candidate experience, right? Through on-campus, in-house, the pipelines of talent they're developing, brings huge value to the organization. So you can do that in a very tactical way through just general numbers or speak more broadly to the initiatives that your team is doing. And then competitive intel. Everyone in the C-suite wants to know what the competition's doing. It's all relevant, regardless of whether you're the CEO, CFO, et cetera. Being able to bring that competitive intel back in those conversations with your leaders goes a long way to showcasing that your recruiters are out in the market, they're engaged, they're aware, and they want to bring that value back into the organization. So those are just a few things that come to mind and really specific to the different constituencies in the C-suite that you interact with on a regular basis.
Brandon, to your point about customizing the message to the audience, right? Each individual at that C-level suite. When we talk about the message, are we like getting literal? Are you doing like presentations with a deck, or are you having conversations? Does the CHR like to see decks, but the CEO just wants to have that direct conversation? Is it kind of a moving target in that sense?
A little bit. I find that in my conversations with C-suite leaders, it's generally in the form of a deck, with the exception of the CHRO, who's someone that I interact with on a fairly regular basis. I'm part of that team. It's more, day to day, but for the most part, it's pretty formal in terms of, presenting real data and strategic initiatives in the form of some slides.
One other question around the competitive information. So I'm all on board with that piece of it, that especially your C-level or CEOs, most particular in my history, they really are interested in that. What are we recruiting from the competitors? Do we want to recruit from the competitors? Where do we stand on that? Do you kind of like knowing that you're going to be having that conversation or presentation, is that in the back of the mind of your recruiting team, or even just like we've done where we identified 30 companies that we really want to hire from, and we would pull reports out of the ATS, who's applied from there, who we interviewed, to really have that type of data around the competitive intelligence? How deep do you find yourself going around talking about the competitors?
Quite often, it's not just about, where we're recruiting from. It's what the other firms are doing in terms of their own recruiting strategies. So being able to say, well, this firm is delivering this in terms of an internship experience, or they've changed their policy on bonuses, or whatever it might be, being able to bring that back to the C-suite leaders and saying, look, here's what the other firms are doing, and then also offering a recommendation for how we can remain competitive, knowing what the other firms are doing can help in driving strategic change. And it's really valuable to those leaders to kind of know what the lay of the land is out there with these other firms so they can make decisions about change. Could be budget related, right? So to your point earlier, right, a lot of it is about getting, showcasing the value so that you get more budget to play with as a team. And this is a great way to do that. If you know that other firms are spending money in, say, benefits that you don't have, you can go back to your leaders and say, look, we know this, we feel like we need to follow suit to remain competitive, and now the ball's in their court to make a decision.
To the rest of the panel, are you addressing or customizing your messaging according to the audience? If you are addressing each C-level person, what are your thoughts on that?
So we have an executive committee, and we are invited monthly to present to them just kind of a 15-minute overview of hiring. So we really get like a snapshot. And when I first joined, they were presenting like line by line all the recs that were open to like our C-suite. And I was like, no, they need, high level, but then if they have the line by line and like an addendum, if they have questions about specific details or specific groups, we can refer to that, but we try to keep it kind of a snapshot, high level. And they really, to Brandon's point, they're very, very interested in the competitive intelligence aspects of it. And so, when we first started showing them data, they were like, I want more of this. And so they were super responsive to that. And it sparked much better conversations than just like a rec report would do.
Any other panel members on that? I really like the approach of, maybe Brandon, back to you a little bit on this. Are we taking almost like if a McKinsey or Deloitte and Touche came in to do more of that type of industry presentation? Is that what we're leaning towards as far as since we're in the business?
I can speak to my experience, which has been in, Big Four public accounting, and the answer is yes. I mean, I look at it as, I'm delivering a strategic vision to the leaders of the firm so they understand why we're doing what we're doing, the value of what we're doing, and how it aligns with the broader values and goals and strategic objectives of the firm.
How about everybody else? Are we taking that consultative approach when engaging with the C-level?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely one of the things that we want to do on a regular basis is meet with our C-suite executives, and I have my recruiting team do that themselves as well. But coming to them with a true understanding of what the competitive marketplace looks like, so that they can speak intelligently and help provide context to the C-suite when we're talking about numbers. So they have the story behind the numbers, not just the numbers.
Yeah, I agree. I am on the C-suite, and that's typically an area that I present is a higher overview of numbers, challenges, maybe some data we're seeing that's coming up or some news that's important for them to know. I don't get too into the weeds because I feel at times it almost can distract the overall goal of what I'm trying to communicate or accomplish. So those types of conversations we're usually having more at the director or VP level. I try to just keep it really clear and transparent, especially for my CEO and CFO, so they have a full understanding of the work, the cost, and issues we see coming.
Yeah, I would add that, I do frequent presentations and I do cater it in terms of the audience. So a CFO, obviously, more of that ROI, the data, the money savings, all that. CEOs more very quick hits, right? Strategic, obviously all the accomplishments that we've done. Our chief revenue officer, someone in charge of sales, right? We're headhunting, we're pulling people, a President's Club winner, account executive that made $2 million out of the last company. We just got them from a competitor. So obviously having those type of, data points to your audience helps out quite a bit.
Excellent. Well, Brandon, anything to add?
No, let's keep moving.
Okay.
I think that's a nice stage for continued discussion around the topic.
Got it. Kelsey, let's jump over to you and your item.
Okay, my name is Kelsey Haybach, and I am Chief People Officer of a company called Mission Critical Solutions. We're a technology company. We sell technology services in 6 different verticals to commercial and government clients. 80% of our work is federal. So my department handles everything from talent acquisition, talent management, onboarding, HR, employee issues, good or bad, strategy, social media, branding. It's a full department that I'm running. And 2 things that I think are really important for my recruiting team and to show their value is building that relationship with the recruiters and the other individuals in the C-suite versus just coming to me. I've been there almost a decade. There's a relationship there. It's easier for them to come to me and ask questions that sometimes I don't even have to go to the recruiter and get the answer. And so I really try to work to stay out of that conversation and only get involved when I need to. And the way that I do that is I don't speak for their work. When we go into meetings, my recruiter will speak on they're coached and prepared to speak on sourcing, pre-screens, how they edit that down to 4 strong candidates, why they send over these submittals, great things about them, who might be a stronger fit, market research, honest feedback. I allow them to run every ounce of that conversation. And what that does is it starts to build that respect level, that relationship level, really believe that they are a valuable resource versus saying, just go to Kelsey, she'll get the answer for us. So I don't believe in speaking for them on their work. I want them to be valued. And I also think, as most of us probably would say, that the other individuals have no idea the time and effort and energy that goes into filling a rec and finding a great candidate. So they say that out loud every time. We say that information every time, so they always know the workload. The other thing that I think is really important for someone like myself that is managing so many different areas, and my team runs lean like most recruiting or HR teams do, is I cross-train. So everybody on my team except one individual is cross-trained. He has no interest. He just wants to recruit, wants to hire. So that's where I keep him. But most of my other individuals, especially when they come in sort of junior or new with me, they're really eager to learn all areas and be fully developed in different lanes of the department. And so unless it's a super crazy busy time, we focus 80% recruiting, and then, around 20% initiative. They're allowed to be a part of one initiative at a time. And it's typically what's going on in the company where we're focusing, or larger projects, career pathing, safety training, mentorship program, harassment training, wherever there's an area for them to present and have a voice and have a personality, we allow that. And what's great about that is, in the recruiting piece, my CEO is not involved in every hire. He's not involved in all those meetings. But typically when we bring on a new program or initiative, that goes through layers of legal and executive feedback, and everybody gets a chance to look at it. And so that recruiter is in those meetings, answering those challenging conversations, presenting in front of the C-suite. And so it starts to show their value in a different way. It starts to build that relationship stronger. It allows my CEO to get to know my team at a higher level. And so I'm a big believer in cross-training them when they want to get involved in a different way. And like I said, being a part of the C-suite, my goal is to have my recruiters have much of a voice as me and have as much respect as me. And those are 2 ways that I do it.
So Kelsey, when you talk about recruiters speaking up for themselves and presenting their information, are you hiring are you hiring your recruiting team at a higher level? They've done that before, or is it a little bit less? And then if so, are you doing coaching to get them to that level?
Yeah, I typically hire junior. I sort of prefer hiring junior and then coaching and developing them in the way that works best for our company, especially because we do so much government work. It's hard to bring somebody in and sort of, you almost have to completely start from scratch to train them on the federal side. So there's a lot of coaching, a lot of development. You know, a lot of times they'll present to me, send emails to me, they'll show me their work, you know, we'll cover how to get through gray areas, or we talk about that hiring manager or that VP in areas where I know they're going to push back. You know, we have a lot of these conversations before they walk in there. They're never just, you know, in there alone struggling, but I fully get them prepared. And then over time, they're able to do it on themselves. And then they come to me and say, this is what I want to say. And this is what I think I should bring up. And these are challenges I want to present. So, but there's a good chunk of coaching that comes along.
Now, if they're not ready to jump in, do you push them in the pool or do you give them a pass?
I'll give a pass for a little bit, but then I push in the pool. Yeah, it's, you know, I want them to feel confident and comfortable. And so I never will just force them to do it. But I might start the conversation and then add them in, and then I'll kind of, I'll be more, I'll talk more, I'll communicate more, I'll promote them and cheerlead them more. But over time, I'll start to walk away or, you know, become more silent, and then they'll speak up. And it really, for me, it's just, they just don't know the hiring manager. They have zero relationship. They just see this person walking around. There might be some intimidation. So as soon as we can actually build just a professional relationship, show we all are a human being, those conversations are much easier.
Julie, I know you're going to be talking something similar around this area. Before we jump off into yours to roll into it, any questions on Kelsey around the coaching piece of it? I do have a quick question, even though I just asked if anybody else has questions. Are you getting feedback from the C-level in regards to your recruiters who go out there and have those conversations? Are they giving you good constructive feedback?
Yeah, I get feedback daily. And I would say 90% of it's great. We definitely have challenges, or we have issues where maybe a recruiter struggled, or, you know, walked away with a different perception of the steps they should take. And we'll work through those challenges. But overall, I don't have frustration from it. I don't have my C-suite saying, I don't want to talk to them, or, you know, don't get them involved. For me, it works. But, you know, we're a smaller company. Our C-suite is in the building walking around daily. So it makes sense for them to present. It makes sense for them to get to know these individuals. I'm remote. I'm the one in Chicago. So it's important that there's that relationship with them.
Got it. Julie, we're gonna segue over to you directly. I think it's a good segue with your area.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this really aligns with everything I want to do, is empower my people to be able to talk directly with the C-suite. They are just normal people who are really interested in making their team stronger. And so I really want to bring our team in as subject matter experts that they can really rely on, to understand the competitive marketplace, who can speak intelligently about data and results, and who can really act as advisors to help them build their stronger team. So, you know, when I talk about data, I'm talking more about qualitative data, primarily, not just the volume of phone screens, et cetera, but kind of the throughput, the percentage of screens that turn into on-sites, that turn into offers, that turn into hires. So they see the efficiency of the work as opposed to the volume of the work. And then, you know, we're also talking about how valuable, important the time that everybody puts into interviewing is, and how we can make that time more valuable by finding the right people. And then, you know, one thing that's really important for us is to partner with the C-suite, to help our hiring managers be better. So developing their team is really important to them. So we will work with them if we find a hiring manager is having some challenges in hiring, have some tough conversations with them, teach them how to position their roles for candidates, help them better assess the talent that is coming in. And if they do that, obviously they'll be able to spend more time focused on their other work, which C-suite always loves to see as well. So that the partnership, the honing of the hiring process, the training of hiring managers, all of that stuff is really important for the C-suite. And that's kind of what I want my team to be working on.
So it sounds like, kind of recapping both Julie and Kelsey, it's like team empowerment, right? Versus just speaking to the C-level suite at the leadership level on your own, but the broadcasting, almost like I don't want to go military or anything, but force multiplier, right? You're expanding your team by building up the team around you, and just by default grows and becomes better. Any other comments from the panel around the team empowerment and having the recruiters basically be the ones speaking on their own behalf?
Yeah, Sean, I'll chime in on that. I think it's a great way of helping develop recruiters to become recruiting leaders. So those who aspire to lead eventually need to be good, right? And not naturally good at presenting information to a leader. So I think it's a really nice way of helping develop your team. And other people recognize that they feel, gratitude for having the opportunity to put themselves in these challenging environments so they grow professionally.
But what about the team member who passes, says they don't want to do that? Do we kind of hold them in a lesser regard, or what are we thinking?
I think you have to tell them, look, if you just want to be an individual contributor and stay, not and have no aspirations of leadership, that's cool. But if you want to grow, you've got to be comfortable presenting information.
Yeah, and if you want to be a senior recruiter, this is something that you absolutely have to have in your toolbox. You can't be afraid to go and talk with a C-suite leader, to talk straight with them about what's going on. It's just, it doesn't make you a senior recruiter.
Right, excellent. Any last things to add around that with Kelsey and Julie? Okay, Frank, let's jump over to you and your item.
Great, thanks, Sean. I'm Frank Hahn here, Vice President, Head of Talent Acquisition at OpenGov. We're here in the Silicon Valley. We have offices nationwide. We are a cloud, SaaS, technology, all those cool buzzwords I always say, company. We're Series D, so we're a nice, growing, expanding startup nationwide now with many different offices. Our product is Cloud ERP, so we're the backbone systems for essentially any cities, communities, library systems, school systems. So really cool that our software is out there making a social impact. So one of the things that I am really honored to be a part of this panel is that I am very passionate about empowering the team and also showcasing the team, especially to the C-level. So this is a great topic. I have a few items that personally really are near and dear to my heart. I'll start off with leading with data. We talked a little bit about this as a group, but I really want to double click on it more. I'm personally a storyteller. I think it's very effective when you tell those stories, but leading with data to tell those stories is really how I go about it. And when I look at ways of telling stories, for example, I mentioned I've had the luxury of reporting to CFOs and CEOs, especially in startup environments where I know the different audiences. So for a CFO and even our CEO, the ROI is a huge data point, return on investment, right? So we're hiring this recruiting team. Even when I say, hey, I want to expand my team, how does it look? We go back into how is the cost savings? What is the return on investment? So the biggest thing that I always like to lead with is imagine if our team wasn't there. Imagine we didn't hire this recruiter. What would be the potential agency savings that could be adding up? Take that 20, 25% of annual salaries and start adding that up. And when you hit 30, 50, 100 hires every year, you could start really have some fun math to show to your CFO, CEO, and anybody else in the organization. So that's one, especially the great recruiters, to showcase how much money they save. Even when they're in the seats, as we all know as TA leaders, we oftentimes don't leverage agencies out there. So knowing, hey, is a quarter of our, hires potentially, agency hires out there? And if we go to zero, which by the way, our team is 0 agency hires, what is that cost saving? So that's always huge. I also love to do reverse data, or what I call reverse funnel. So what I mean by that is, as we know, hiring managers, executives love to say point A to point B. We open up a rec, we fill the rec, A and B. Well, the recruiter has so much work to do, kind of making of the sausage, right, behind the scenes. that they do. It is really my job and help empower the recruiters to showcase what they do. And leading with the data is very important. So what I mean by a reverse funnel, top-down approach is, at the end of the day, yes, we made 5 hires, whatever, this month to this recruiter. Well, to get there, how many candidates at the top of the funnel did it take? What was the sourcing efforts? I put down how many in-mails, shows up essentially for those recruiters, how many profile views add up and all that, how many interviews happen, and then finally all the way down to the hires, right? And then for us, I could showcase to the executive team, which I've done multiple times, our recruitment team and the power of the recruitment team enabled us to showcase not only quantity, but quality. The quality being under 1% of candidates that we source and apply essentially are the ones that are being hired. So those are some of the nice reverse, funnel from top to the bottom, showcasing what the team does and all the hard work that takes behind it. I also am a big fan of something called top grading, especially in this environment right now where, hey, the rec load may be a little lower in some companies just due to obviously the pandemic, but top grading is always top of mind. And what I mean by that is, are we always hiring the best person for the job, or are we just simply hiring to fill a position? I challenge my hiring managers, our executive team, to make sure everyone's on the same page, that we are constantly top grading. And when we top grade, that means even if a referral comes in from a great employee, they look good, they're okay, they could probably do the job. But what if we're able to source a candidate that even is 10 out of 10, even better? That's like constantly up leveling and top grading, the talent pool. And I showcase to our team, our executive team, make sure our recruiters know what that means. So that really shows their worth too, because that really helps drive a lot of great conversations and really makes them look like a hero at the end of the day, because they are really not settling. We don't want to settle. I know we're short on time, so I'm going to make, my final points very quick. I am also very big on ensuring that we as recruiters, and I count myself as a part of that as well, of course, showcasing all the stats, is that we are showcasing those sourcing stats. I have pie charts that show, here's how many people come from, our hires come from referrals, how many comes from applications, how many come from sourcing. So the fact that we are sourcing, and what I mean by that is showcasing to executives that sourcing is a word we all know, but what does that mean? For me, I showcase to the hiring team and executives that sourcing means we're actively going out there cold calling, cold hunting, and pulling people from happily employed jobs to come to us. And oftentimes that creates a aha moment, like, oh, wow, okay, you're not just sitting and reviewing a bunch of resumes. That's essentially the hard work that is going behind the scenes to make sure we're getting top quality, candidates. So there's a couple more things, but I want to be respectful of time. I know we're running low, so I'll eject myself from here.
Quick question back at you, Frank. When we talk about using data to tell the story and giving updates to the C-suite, I think the general rule is, hey, we're talking quarterly reporting, right? For this sake of argument. Are you telling an ongoing story along the same data points, or is it kind of a different story each quarter, a different highlight each quarter? It's like one quarter you're highlighting time to fill, another you're highlighting number of competitive applicants or on-site interviews. Is it story over story, or are we switching it up each quarter?
Great question. So I have my foundation of the true impactful storytelling metrics. And yes, that includes time to fill, close ratio, the top to bottom funnel, all those different things on there. Glassdoor, even in there, a lot of different things, the interview feedback, onboarding surveys, all that. But with that said, I do add in different elements. 2 things. 1, I will report trends from quarter to quarter, or sometimes year over year, depending on what story is obviously, appropriate with those foundational data points. And then 2, I do add in different initiatives and things that the teams are doing. So for example, I have a recruiting coordinator that I hired about a year ago. I was able to showcase her skill sets with what I called OpenGov candidate experience, white glove service 1.0. We evolved to 2.0, 3.0 in terms of how we're doing things to really create even candidate experience for the recruiting coordinator role. And then recently we're expanding globally to India. So of course that becomes the next kind of wave in terms of how we're adding in and layering in our different initiatives and projects. So hopefully that helped answer your question.
Yeah, I found trend lines are what executives really look for when they look at dashboards. Is a pie chart is okay, but to see the trends over time, whether we're going up or down, seems to be like the most popular type of chart if you're doing charts that they look for. On that piece, like I just recently discovered a YouTube guy that I think he's from McKinsey. That's always on top of mind, and he's telling people how to be a consultant. And he has one video on these are the charts to use and when to use them, and every consultant from McKinsey uses them. It was really interesting to see. When do you use a line chart? When do you use a bar chart? and what story are you trying to tell? Do you have any insight? This is sort of for all panelists. Hey, a really go-to metric and how to present it is this. I hate pie charts, so I'm going to say pie charts. Is there like a go-to that you always use, like a trick to communicate a data metric to the C-level that stands out?
We've been really deep in this because I have an all new, like my whole TA team is new and I've only been at the company for a year. So we're, and I think previously, just what was being presented was more like a rec report I mentioned earlier. And so we really have incorporated, like one of the charts that we use is a stacked bar chart that shows hiring trends by month. So we've stacked it so that it's kind of like hires by month plus departures by month plus offer rejections by month. And so those seem like three kind of somewhat disparate data points, but it actually is really nice in terms of just capturing the monthly activity in one nice chart, basically. And so we've been doing year-to-date hiring trends and turnover trends and sort of accepts and declines all in one. And that's been a really nice visual just because it really shows kind of what the team is doing each month. And then we can kind of break it down and look at, same thing, agency spend, the pie chart of, source of hire. And so we try to call out, directed sourcing or passive candidate sourcing so that it again, shows that weight of that it's an active thing. And I think people forget too that, especially as a smaller company without a ton of name recognition yet, our passive sourcing is really needed to kind of get the buzz out there, but it's also not necessarily going to be where we make the hires from. And so, just bringing up points like that to people, not just about, we do time to fill too, but it's also, we try to break it down by department because some departments are going to be way harder to fill and find people for than others. We're hiring for a patent agent right now and it's, we have like 6 applicants and it's been posted for a month. So
yeah, on that sourcing piece, and I think kind of jumping back to one item you noted, Frank, was tracking, if you take a percentage, and this is really just looking at executive hires, if you're making executive hires in-house, just by default, 20% finder's fee. I've seen this sort of be spotlighted before. Hey, if we were to use external search for these or contingent or retained or what have you, this is what it would cost us. Right? Just sort of like that number sort of stands out. I think the businesses like that. When a company can get that, I always think it's a matter of pride and joy. But then when you get into higher level positions, it's a hard battle to win to find, VPs of finance at senior level financial companies or what have you. Yeah, so the outbound sourcing has always been a key metric of mine. The reason why I ask if anybody had a secret sauce is because I don't have one. So I just wondered if everybody had. It's usually a combination of a few put together. I have had experience where we worked a lot of time on a presentation on a deck. You get in the meeting with the CFO and they just push it aside and say, let's have a conversation. That's why I was asking that question, whether it's decks or presentation. I was like, oh my God.
But I would argue though that all that work you did on the deck feeds the conversation really well.
True. Yeah, it gives you knowledge, absolutely. But it's
organizes
in the gut. So.
Yeah, I would say that's the one thing I will add is that, obviously we've talked about this, but when I put together that deck, obviously presenting is so important, as you know, telling that story. But I've been able to really convince my executive team that I would like to present talent acquisition to the board of directors. So they have their board deck. So for those of you that have that visibility on there, it's pretty incredible in terms of all the different things that you see presented. So I followed suit and learned a lot in terms of trend lines and different things. So every now quarter I report out essentially those different things, but there's no presentation. At one time I had to present, which is cool. But other than that, I'm putting together that deck, which is also really neat. And it helps enable us to put a framework in terms of how we want to present to other audience members as well in the C-suite.
So to follow a little bit up on that one, the framework of the data and the ongoing story, is anybody utilizing BI tools now, like a Tableau or Microsoft BI in their reporting to the C-suite, or is it all still conversations in decks?
At my last company, we were doing a lot of that, and we're doing some of that now, but it's definitely harder. um, but yes, that's absolutely. At my last company, it was much bigger, and we had access to really good software, but also there's also BI that you can get through Gartner now too. I know we used to have access to Talent Neuron, which Gartner / used to be CEB shared, and that was really nice because it would allow you to do like hotspot heat mapping of talent pools, so we could take this to our intake meetings and sort of say, hey, all the talent for this position is on the East Coast, so we're looking at a reload, we're looking at this or that. So it's heat mapping, but also kind of, and I mean, you can at my company now, I just do Google Trends, but you can, or even just searching, who else is hiring for this. So I do share that information with the execs as well of especially in the Bay Area because it's so crazy here.
Yeah, hey Melissa, do you want to just segue into your items? I think data trends
Sure.
that was covered.
Yeah, no, and I'll just go quickly because I know I've been kind of interjecting here and there, but I think the funnel metrics are hugely important. Like Julie was discussing, the conversion rates, right? That we're not just reaching out to 100 candidates, we're reaching out in a very targeted and strategic way, and we're not mass emailing people. But then also sort of all the graphics and pie charts and things like that too. So we definitely, break it down by, where we're finding the candidates, as well as, how we're identifying them, if it's a referral or directed sourcing or an applicant or something like that. And then I think really, I think the overhaul of the data presentation has been really eye-opening for our executive team, right? So we're in an interesting position in that, we're a fairly newly public company, and we've had to work a lot on being more competitive compensation-wise and benefits-wise and things like that. So we've also been collecting information when we do get a decline of, okay, did this person stay at their current company? Did they go to another company? What was their offer like, if we can get that information? And, that's also been, I think, pretty eye-opening to the execs, is because they were thinking that we were crazy recommending all these, salary increases internally, as well as, paying market competitively to the outside. And I don't think that they had any sort of realization of sort of what that gap was. So really, I think sometimes it's just a good exercise to say, what are we presenting currently, and what should we be presenting, and asking, part of it is an exercise, and we've just been, we have this huge, massive slide deck for a 15-minute presentation, and it was like 20 slides or something like that, and a lot of it was just rec reporting. And so we've just kind of been, slowly over time adding a new data slide instead of kind of the rec report, and seeing how it goes over. And then based on the feedback that we get each month, we've been, adding more or fewer data points, more data, less of the nitty gritty sort of in the weeds stuff, because they don't need that. And this is, again, a monthly presentation at the EC, but we do also have the opportunity to present slides quarterly to the board of directors as well, so they know what we're doing. But it's, it's definitely, I think, interesting to introduce, even if it's taking something that was a table and representing it, graphically, sort of what conversations that sparks when you just kind of, are looking at the data a little bit differently.
Melissa, what was the heat mapping tool? Somebody's asking in chat that you used.
Oh yeah, so it was Gartner. So CEB used to be CEB, and now it's Gartner, and they partner with a lot of companies to do a lot of sort of kind of like a McKinsey type of thing. They're a consulting firm, but they do a lot of HR and labor market consulting specifically.
Yeah, so like third-party data in short, right?
Exactly. And they do a lot, they publish a lot of like white papers from various companies and, you know, and kind of like best practices and or how, you know, I remember one there was like how Novo Nordisk like totally revamped their hiring practices and saved a bunch of money and all this stuff too. So they have a lot of really good resourcing, but it, you know, my company had a lot of resources at the last company that I had that. So now we're kind of doing more of like Google Trends and stuff like that. But who else? I'm trying to think. There were a couple other places. Some of the RPOs, if you're at a larger company and you're working with like a talent function that's under RPO, sometimes you can partner with them and they have heat mapping abilities as well and market, you know, depending on how large the agency is that manages the RPO.
Yeah, so let me ask this back to the panel as a whole around data, right? So the world that we're all getting through right now, a lot of things going on, COVID crisis, the D&I issues that are coming around. A lot of these things I think are going to be part of the conversations we have at the C-level here at the end of 2020, probably more prominent in 2021 about, hey, what is recruiting doing? What is HR doing in this regard? When the audience signed up, they had an opportunity to, hey, what would you recommend as a way to present to C-level suite? And there's sort of disparate, but the one big bucket that stood out was data. I think that's sort of prominent in this conversation. One of the things that I've done with my reporting is before I ever put it into a BI tool or present it back for whether it's in Excel or what have you, is I massage the data that I put out the ATS. The ATS never really has it the way you want it. So I run it through a little machine and it puts the data the way I need to do it. My latest challenge is working with Workday Recruit and getting data into Tableau.
Yeah.
And getting it in a meaningful way because the business looks at their reporting in Tableau, so now TA has to present Tableau. Okay, so making data read friendly to a Tableau piece of tool is interesting. But the reason why I bring it up about the third-party tools is there is so much information that's outside of the ATS. And recruiters don't have a time to be entering data into the ATS, even if there was a place to put that kind of data in the ATS, which typically there's not. What are your thoughts around incorporating your messaging to the C-level suite when it is third-party data? It is, you know, Census Bureau information or competitive information. Are we kind of just handpicking and putting in numbers into a deck? Or if the trend continues for C-level suites to be looking at BI tools, right, as AI keeps coming along, another acronym, what are your thoughts around being able to have that data story in a way that's manageable and can be read almost in real time? If that's what the business is going to come looking for. I know it's a big question, but any thoughts on that?
We're doing a lot manually right now, and it's really horrible. We had Workday ATS at my last company, and I didn't find the reporting all that useful in it. So we actually had to use our HR analytics piece to actually, you know, run reporting and stuff. But right now, our HRAS isn't tied that well to our system, and we use Lever, and I find it horrible. Like they have all these data points, but they're not useful data points. It's just like, it's crazy. So we are actually looking at going to like a greenhouse or smart recruiters or something like that that's much more robust on the data side. But then the other thing that we've been piloting there are some free like project management tools, as well as like so one is called Smart Sheets. It's like and a lot of the PM tools are kind of tied to presentation tools as well. So what we're trying to do is kind of, you know, you can make nicer graphics and things like that than you can in PowerPoint or even Excel. So we're trying to figure out, you know, kind of how we can better update it more in a more automated way until we can get a newer ATS, but also just kind of not having to sort of manually tally a lot of this stuff or track it in Excel. So yeah, if anybody has a magical system or a bullet, I know I've heard Asana is great and a few others too, but
I think every ATS has reporting challenges because the data is just messy in general. And so it makes it very difficult to get it right. So yeah, you do have to curate the data quite a bit in order to get what you need to have out of there.
Yeah,
And of course,
I agree.
only
I pull the data monthly, and it is never correct. And
Right.
recruiters are frustrated, and they're frustrated that they're asked to go in there and clean it up or work on it, and make sure that they've closed out every candidate or push them through the process, or so it shows their real numbers. And so it's not a clean process to even make it efficient for the recruiter in real time. And I think that's the biggest struggle is that, the recruiters are like, I'll do that on a day when it's slow. And then that day never comes and the information's not correct. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, I'll jump in and agree with that. Good to know I'm not alone. I'm on the lever side as well. And yes, it's a lot of manual pulling out Excel spreadsheets behind just to be able to tell that story with the data. So glad to hear everyone's there with me.
History loves company, huh? Yeah, in all my reporting, I basically go into with the approach of if I can get the recruiter to update the applicant's status, that's all I ask from you. And then I'll take care of all the rest.
Right.
And sometimes that's a chore, but usually you can get a compromise from that because it behooves them, right, to know where the people are. But kind of, Kelsey, to your point, yeah, I just did the phone interview. When I got time, I'll go update their status.
Right.
So I use like week buckets. So hey, if you do it within the week, great. That's all I need. Update that status within the week period. That's all I ask.
I know this sounds, this is a little off topic, but we commission our recruiters off of hires, and I have found that helps keep them in track with wanting to get their numbers correct in the ATS because they want to make sure they get their commissions correct. So I have found that's been a little trick that has helped keep things moving, for them as a benefit and for me from a reporting executive benefit. So, yeah.
Wait, what do you mean by commission? You paying bonus per hire?
We bonus if they hit, the hire hits 90 days and then 180 days. So having that information correct in the ATS keeps them, wanting to make sure when I pull the report, I'm not confused on the numbers I'm looking at.
Okay, that's interesting. You rarely hear corporate recruiters getting commission.
Yeah.
The few times I have is based upon hire. I haven't heard they have to be there for X amount of days. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of government contracting, and there can be high turnover in those areas, and they're a little jumpy. And so that really helps us make sure that they're committing to placing the right candidate who's a fit and not just trying to place this role by the time the contract goes off, and then we have a constant turnover issue. So it helps train the recruiter to also really take the hire seriously and become stronger during the process. So there's a couple of reasons why we do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I know we ran a little bit long, but good conversation. Thanks for everybody hanging in there. We'll kind of wrap it up. We're almost at that hour mark. Any kind of final comments? We'll kind of go in a circle here. Any final thoughts or comments? Brandon, we'll start with you.
About the data and telling the story, as Frank mentioned. I think we had another webcast not too long ago on that very topic, Sean. So clearly a thread that it's running through the minds of TA leaders everywhere is how can we tell the story in a compelling way? So we just need to keep working on it.
And I think that you only get better at it with experience. And when your experiences is the same C-level person that your same conversation over years, that makes it even easier because you know what they're looking for. You have that piece of it. All right, and Kelsey, any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. Great conversation.
Julie?
I would just echo what Brandon said, is really telling the story of the data and helping them understand the why behind what the numbers are, and really understand what the marketplace looks like.
I can't agree more on the competitive data. And it's hard to get. Frank?
Yeah, I would say just given any opportunity, I'm a big fan of, doing those presentations and really shouting out your team, giving them individual shout outs for their success. And I do it multiple, ways. We have our own, GNA, that's with the finance, legal, HR, all that team. I do it there. When I have an opportunity to do it all hands, the entire company, I use that as a platform to obviously shout out the team, and then obviously individual conversations. So as many times as you could represent your team and the great work, that's what's near and dear to my heart.
Excellent. And Melissa?
Yeah, I would say my last piece is one of the other things that we've really tried to highlight not just, the work that our team is doing, but also, breaking it down by department, or breaking it down by, if you have trends and say, okay, this department is consistently not getting back to us, and so their roles are consistently being filled in over 90 or over 120 days, that also calls out to the senior leadership, like, hey, your people have a role in this as well, kind of like, service level agreement type of situation. So I think that's a key piece that we've been trying to incorporate into our data and highlight, hey, it's not just us, that carries this. It has to be a partnership and a collaboration.
Yeah, I've recently started delivering recruiting reports to VPs of business units, but they didn't want it on the recruiters. They wanted it on their managers, which is a great thing to see.
That's what I did at my last company. Our leadership was very focused on, are my managers in my organization doing what they need to do to get these hires filled?
Excellent. So I think it summarizes teamwork. It's a team deal.
Right.
All right.
It's not just our fault.
All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for this conversation. I thought it was a great one. It's one of those ongoing. Can always get better at it. So with that said, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.